Let me know where you guys are logging in from. That would be great to see where you guys are all coming in from. I'm in Buffalo, New York. And again, I'm going to wait about a minute here to really get started. But for those of you that don't know me, again, my name is Dennis Brown. I'm the owner of Freight Broker Bootcamp. And, I started a freight brokerage back in 2003. I had absolutely no experience in the logistics, freight, or trucking industry, and was very, very blessed. Went on to grow that company to over $80 million in sales before I sold it to pursue other ventures. But I'm still the owner of Freight Broker Bootcamp, and Freight Broker Bootcamp is the premier, primary, most cost-effective freight broker and freight agent training program online today. So that's probably how you connected with me, either through my blog or through the Freight Broker Bootcamp site. So welcome, Lori. Welcome, Jessica. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. So today, I'm going to go over, recently I posted a blog, and the blog was talking about how to turn one freight customer into 10 freight customers. And, I got a lot of really great feedback, tons of questions, lots of views on the video. And so I thought that would be a great place to start today, is to talk a little bit about that process and ask some questions, answer some questions from you guys so that we could try to make sure that you guys could hit the nail right on the head. Lori, welcome. Lori's interested in Freight Broker Bootcamp. Awesome. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. But the video that I talked about again was how to convert customers into, one freight customer into 10 customers without cold calling. So I'm going to try to limit the questions because we're not going to be on here for an hour. I'm planning on doing maybe 15 or 20 minutes on here for this first broadcast. But if everything goes well and everybody enjoys this and we get a lot of good feedback and a lot of good participation, I'm considering doing this weekly or maybe bi-weekly as a resource for you guys to come in and just ask me questions live about freight brokering and becoming a freight agent. So, the video and the blog post that I did last week, it's really a 3-step process. And so I'm going to describe that really quickly, and then I'll open it up to some questions, okay? So, I get a lot of questions from people on how to get customers. And, I hear it over and over again. I hate cold calling. I hate smiling and dialing. I hate making 100 phone calls a day. I hate the idea of doing that. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I understand because I've been there. I built several successful businesses through cold calling. So I can tell you that cold calling does work. It does work, but it's a lot of work. And it takes a little bit different person to be able to get through all the rejection, the negativity, and just honestly, just to do it day after day after day and to spin those numbers, because it really becomes a numbers game. Well, one of the things that I learned, a dozen or so years ago was in the brokerage industry was how to not have to make so many cold calls in order to generate more customers. And so this is the strategy that I'm talking about here is a 3-step strategy. The first strategy is so let's say you're doing business with XYZ Shipping in Buffalo, New York, right? And you've been doing business with them for a few months, and all of a sudden, you're delivering into Boston, you're delivering into Pittsburgh, you're delivering into Atlanta, and you're delivering freight for that customer, and that customer's happy. And you've been doing a great job for them. You're giving them competitive rates. You're giving them good service. You're very responsive to their needs. And so at this point, what you do is you reach out to that client, that customer, and you ask them for a written testimonial letter on their letterhead, something that says that you're doing a great job, that you're over-delivering, and that they really enjoy doing business with you. That type of a testimonial letter is very compelling. There's an old saying, and it goes like this: when you say it about yourself, it's bragging. But when somebody else says it about you, it's proof. And so that social proof of having a customer say that about you is extremely powerful. So there's a lot of applications for having a testimonial letter like that. But in this case, what we're going to do with it is it's going to be a really important part of leveraging these other locations. So first step is to get the testimonial letter from the customer. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is as you're going into these pick up and drop locations where you're delivering or picking up freight for your customer, what you're going to do is you're going to document all the addresses, the company names, addresses, phone numbers, and any contacts from those locations. Typically, you'll have a phone number. Maybe you got to schedule a pickup or a drop. Maybe you've got to schedule some appointments. Maybe you've got to contact them to verify that everything went well. Make a note of all of those locations that you're coming into or going out of. And then what you're going to do is you're going to reach out to the contacts at each one of those locations. And you're simply going to, and I put together a little script. As a matter of fact, at the end of this, I'm going to give you guys a free gift, and it is a cheat sheet that you can download. It's a one-page cheat sheet that will go over everything that I'm going to talk about today, including the script that I'm about to read to you right now, which is the third step, which is where you contact those pickup and drop locations and you talk to them. And this is the type of script that you would use. Now, again, you don't have to use these exact words, but in the cheat sheet that I'm going to give you access to, I'll give you a link to it at the end of this video. But here's how it would work. It might say something like, "Hi, Joe. My name is, my company, ABC Logistics, has either picked up or delivered at your location many times for our customer, XYZ Company out of Buffalo. And I just wanted to thank you for helping get our trucks unloaded so quickly. You guys have done a great job. We really enjoy working with XYZ Company. As a matter of fact, they recently wrote us a recommendation letter that shares how much they like working with us as well." So now you're talking about that relationship that you have with that client. Now you're not sitting there beating your chest. Now you're allowing your client to pound on their chest for you, right? And so the next part of this says, "Do you mind if I ask you a question?" Typically they're going to say yes. And you simply say, "If I had a driver in your area, would you be the person that I would call about available loads coming out of your location?" They're going to say yes or no. If they say yes, great. If they say no, find out who it is, because that's the person you really want to be talking to. And then you simply say, "Okay, great. Well, we typically run either whatever type of equipment you specialize in, vans or reefers or flatbeds, whatever it is." And you say, "By any chance, would you know what outbound lanes you run the most often?" So you're asking them what lanes they run. If they're coming, for example, if this guy's in Boston, he may run, daily truckloads down to New Jersey, into New York City, into Albany or Buffalo or Pittsburgh, or maybe up to Portland, Maine. Depending upon the type of business he has, he may have daily truckloads coming out of Boston. And so you want to know what those lanes are that he runs most often. And then you can also say, what about your inbound lanes? What freight do you have coming in? He may have freight coming in from all over the country that he controls the freight bills on, which could give you an opportunity to start doing, competing and doing business with him. And then it goes on to say, "Excellent. Based upon the fact that we're already delivering into your location regularly and our excellent relationship with XYZ Company out of Buffalo, would it make sense for me to submit some rates and availability for the lanes you shared with me?" And then you pause. And you don't talk. You just pause and you listen. You just asked a question. Now you need to zip your lip and listen. What you're looking for is for him to say yes, because now he's just asked you for a rate proposal. He's asked you to send him some information. You're now engaging him. It's not you cold calling him anymore. Now he's asked for the information, okay? And then you would simply say, "Okay, great. What's your email?" Now you gather their email address for obvious reasons. And then you say, "Excellent. Would it be okay to schedule a quick call to go over those rates and availability maybe in the next couple of days?" So what you're trying to do is not just send him rates. You want to schedule an appointment. So you want to schedule a meeting from a meeting. So you're in a phone conversation with him right now. You're having a phone call. What you want to do is you want to schedule another phone call. In a perfect world, you want to schedule another call to go over the rates with him so that you can answer any questions, handle any objections, and at that point, possibly have an opportunity to start having him tender you loads. So that's the basic three-step process. First, get the testimonial letter. Second, document all the pickup and drop locations for your customer. Third is to contact those pickup and drop locations and to utilize that script as a way to try to, number one, find out who the decision maker is, and number two, what lanes they're running, and number three, get permission from them to start sending them some information about the rates and availability that you have for those lanes. So We literally, at LDI, the company that I grew, this was a staple of how the brokers did business. Rather than cold calling, smart brokers realized that what they needed to do is they needed to try to leverage the relationships that they already had. And so a great way to do that is to simply connect the dots as it relates to all these picks and different picks and drop locations, okay? And that's a perfect way for you to start turning cold calls, what would have been cold calls, into warm calls, okay? So it's a very simple strategy. And again, what I'm going to tell you is this. I'll put in the comments here. Sorry, I'm the only person running this, so I'm going to have to type in here and respond to some of your questions as well in the live stream. But I'll put in the comments down here where you guys can go and check out and get the free, where you guys can get the free download, okay, where you can get that cheat sheet. That cheat sheet, if you haven't gotten it, I've gotten great feedback. It's very simple. It's a one-pager. It keeps things really, really simple. And if you use it, what you're going to find out is it'll just make things a lot easier for you. So here, I'm going to put it in here right now. This is the page. I just added it in here right now. If you click on that link, it's going to bring you to a page where you can actually, download the cheat sheet, which is a one-page cheat sheet that goes over not only the process but the script. Okay, so now what I want to do is, now that I covered that, and it took us less than about 10 minutes or so to cover that, I want to make sure one thing. First of all, if you guys could do me a favor, I don't know if you guys are open to it or not. We've got 15 or 20 people live on here. Have you guys had a chance to share the post yet? Have you guys had a chance to share the stream? It would be great, because what I'm looking for, I'll be absolutely thrilled to do this on a weekly basis and to help you out as much as I possibly can if I get a lot of engagement. But if nobody's interested in doing this, I'm just, it just doesn't make sense for me to spend my time. I still own 2 other businesses besides my online business, so I'm usually a pretty busy guy, but I would definitely be willing to make the time as long as we have some good participation. So if you could continue to if you agree, give me a thumbs up. That would be great. Hit the thumbs up. I'd love to try to get some confirmation from you guys that makes sense. Thanks, Lester. Thanks, Tim, for sharing. That's awesome. Let's see what we got here. So here's a couple of questions coming in. This is awesome. So here's a few questions. Let's see what we got. One of the questions is, let's see, can we use carrier testimonials or just shippers? That's a really good question. What I would suggest is this. Use carrier testimonials with carriers and use shipper testimonials with shippers. Now, could you use a carrier testimonial with a shipper? Yeah, you could. I mean, it holds some weight. But again, it's not the same thing as having a shipper who's hiring you to move their freight as opposed to a carrier that you're hiring to move your freight. So it's a little different. That's a good question, Suhair, but I think you'd probably be better off using shipper testimonials when you're talking to shippers and carrier testimonials when you're talking to carriers. Okay, Lori, thank you for the share. That's awesome. Thanks for the thumbs up, guys. Continue to give me some thumbs up. That would be great. All right, so Jessica would definitely get on every week. That's awesome. What is the link for the cheat sheet? I included it in there, and I'll include it again, guys. It's probably, if you scroll up through the post here, you'll see some of them. So let me just see what else we got here. Questions. What are the questions that we have? All right, let's see here. Sorry, guys. Again, I'm the only one doing this. So, all right, there's the link again, guys, for the cheat sheet that you can download. There it is again. You'll see it right there. If you click on that link, it's going to bring you. All right, so it's going to bring you over to where you can download that cheat sheet, okay? So can you learn and get started as an agent? Joe Longo. Can you learn it? Well, yeah, Joe, you absolutely can learn and get started. That's what it's all about. I've had over 3,000 students go through Freight Broker Bootcamp, my freightbrokerbootcamp.com training course. And, we've got thousands of students. We've had amazing feedback, and you absolutely can. Remember, Joe, I started my logistics company back in 2003. I had no experience in logistics, no experience in trucking. I didn't know anything. I probably you probably know more right now than I did when I first got started. Literally, I'm not even kidding you. That's the God's honest truth. I literally knew nothing about the logistics and trucking industry. And then in our first year, we did over $1 million in sales. Our second year, we did over 3 million in sales. Our third year, we did over 6 million in sales. And then it went 12, 18, 23, 32. And by the end of 2015, the company had done over $80 million in sales. And shortly after that, I sold my equity in that company to pursue some other ventures, but I've continued to keep the Freight Broker Bootcamp because I really want to keep a low-cost option for people like you to help get started, because the Freight Broker Bootcamp training is only $98 one time, and that gives you 6-month full access. Unlike a lot of the online training programs that can cost $500, $1,000, even several $1,000s. And some of those training programs are really good, but they're just not affordable for most people, okay? So hope that helps you answer the question. Sorry for blocking the camera, guys. I'm still a little bit of an amateur here when it comes to Facebook Live. Jessica has a question. I just left very, very large 3PL a couple weeks ago, and I'm now working as an independent contractor from home. What are some good, inexpensive tools to use? Okay, so as far as load boards go, I would highly recommend Internet Truck Stop. Load board, Internet Truck Stop, in my opinion, is the best. Now you have the DAT, right? You can use that. That's a great service. A little bit more expensive, but it's very good. You obviously have a bunch of other load boards that you can join, but I really like internettruckstop.com. Okay, I just think that it's the biggest bang for your buck. Some other tools, really depends on what you're talking about, Jessica. If you have something specific in a specific area that you're talking about, most of what we use is internet access, load boards, cell phones, telephones. We don't need an enormous amount of tools or technology. There are some really good software. If you are acting as an agent for somebody now, they're probably going to give you some of those tools. They'll probably have some of those tools available. And so I would ask them as well. Let's see, what else? What's the best paying freight to go after? Lester Eugene Barker's asking, what's the best type of freight to go after? Well, that's really a hard question to answer, Lester. I think that every type of freight has its advantages and disadvantages. It really depends upon what you're trying to do. Let me tell you my personal opinion and how we started. When I first started, one of the things that I'm a huge advocate of is finding a niche. Okay, very important to find a niche. And I even wrote a blog post. It was super popular about finding your niche. You can go on freightbrokerbootcamp.com/blog and you can check out that post. But I'm big into niches. We started out by doing all van freight, and then we migrated into refrigerated freight and eventually flatbed and specialized freight. Now we had 70 offices throughout the U.S. We were doing, $4, $5, $6, $7 million, $4, $5, $6 million a month in sales. So we were very diversified, but each broker had his niche. And so I strongly suggest that you find a niche. Now, some freight is higher paying. Some freight, it takes a little bit more work than others. It really depends. I strongly suggest that when you first get started and you're just learning how to do freight, is become very niche. If you want to focus in on just van freight, which is very simple, typically one pick, one drop type van freight, it's really simple. When you start getting into refrigerated freight, it might be perishables. You might run into some issues with some claims, and you want to try to avoid that. The same thing goes for flatbeds. If you're hauling steel and they don't tarp it properly, you're going to get some rust. You might have some claims on that. Van freight is probably the easiest to get started. Now, it's not the highest paying all the time, but it's very prevalent. You're not going to get in a lot of trouble. So I don't know if that answers your question, Lester, but I think that might be a good start. Another great place to consider is partials. This is an underserved market. What I mean by partials is not LTL. I don't mean, 3, 4, 5, 600 pounds. What I mean is, and I don't mean full truckload, I mean something that's going to take up 10, 15, 20 foot of a truck. but it's not going to be an exclusive use truck. So you might go into partials, van or, partial van freight. Really good margins in partial freight. I always really enjoyed that. I had brokers that did extremely well. They would routinely make 25, 30, 40% margins on partials. So that's something you might want to explore. Okay, let's see what else we got here. All right, let's see. Questions. Okay, so Brant Rogers has a question. I understand that getting your first customer can be difficult. Do you know how new freight brokers generally transition from their current employer to working full-time as a broker? That's a tough question, Brant. A lot of times what happens is, they plan it as they migrate out. So say, for example, they start working for a broker in an effort to try to develop some experience and to develop a book of business. And then once they get a book of business that's consistent and reliable, a lot of times they'll migrate out into becoming an agent, depending upon if they have a non-compete, depending upon the terms and conditions that they agreed to with their employer. Now, if you don't have a book of business and you're migrating out of an existing brokerage, it's no different than if you never worked there, other than that you have a little bit of experience now. So, how do they migrate out? Typically, I don't see that many people do it part-time. I mean, I do see people do it part-time, but they do it part-time not when they have another day job. So the most effective way to do freight brokering or becoming a freight agent part-time is when you work nights or evenings and you can work mornings and afternoons as an agent or a broker. So you can work the business part-time. I've seen drivers do it. I've seen other people in the warehouse industry and other industries that work evenings or nights that are able to do things during the day or during the mornings as a part-time agent or a part-time broker. So I don't know if that answers your question, but transitioning from an inside brokerage to an outside agent or starting your own brokerage is usually either a 1 or a 0. You're either in or you're out, right? And so, you might want to save up. My suggestion is save up 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. If you're concerned about having cash flow to pay your bills, because just like any business, the skies aren't going to open up and just money start falling out. I don't want you to, to get the wrong conception. It's just like any other business. You've got to build it. And so the advantage to working inside of a brokerage is that you can develop those carrier relationships, you can develop those skills, you can develop those customer relationships, and it makes that migration that much easier. To transition into an agent or your own brokerage. So hope that answers your question. Brant. All right. Tracy Cooper asked about, what about 360? Yeah, that's the DAT system, 360 freight. Yeah, I think that's the DAT system, right? They're very good. They're a little bit more expensive. Very, very good system. Very reliable. They've got a lot of great tools. But the biggest bang for your buck, reality is, in my opinion, is Internet Truck Stop. Okay, so here's another question. Let's see. What would you recommend when you have freight that you cannot put on load boards and carriers are hesitant to move your loads because you're a new broker? Well, I'm not sure why you wouldn't be able to put freight on a load board. Okay, unless there's some issue with a customer or something like that. I'm not quite sure why you wouldn't be able to put the loads on a load board in order to attract carriers. But to answer your next question about carriers that are hesitant to move your loads because you're new, listen, the reality is, if you're a broker, you have a bond. You have a $75,000 bond, which is the minimum requirement to become a licensed broker. Now, if you're an agent, you're going to be operating under another established broker. So if you're trying to do business with carriers, you can rely on that bond. Obviously, you can also get testimonial letters from other carriers that you've done business with stating that that you're a good broker, you paid them on time, there's no issues. And then another thing you can always do is you can offer advances. You can do quick pays. From a cash flow perspective, sometimes that's something that really helps them out. Carriers love to get paid quick. If you factor, if you're a broker who factors, brokers are more likely to do business with you when you're brand new because the factoring company is going to be paying them and they know they're going to get paid quickly. So those are a few ideas that you could use to get going. So hey guys, let's try to limit this in a little bit more specifically into how to convert one customer into 10 customers. I know we kind of got off track, and it's like opening Pandora's box. If I answer one question, all of a sudden now I've got to answer the next question, and then we're all the way off topic here. So as it relates to getting customers, as it relates to this system that I shared with you, the step 1, 2, and 3 on how to convert one freight customer into 10 customers, does anybody have any specific questions? And in the meantime, guys, hey, listen, I'm going to post a link to that. I'm going to repost that link to the download where you can get that free cheat sheet. I just posted it again. If you click on that link that I just posted, you can get the download of the cheat sheet, which is a one-page cheat sheet that talks about my system, steps 1 through 3, including the script. And for those of you that are just joining us, listen, for those of you that don't know me, again, my name is Dennis Brown. I'm the owner of Freight Broker Bootcamp. I'm very blessed. Been ranked by Inc. magazine, I think 7 times as one of the fastest growing freight brokers in the United States. And again, truly been blessed. I'm the owner of Freight Broker Bootcamp, and this is the first ever Facebook Live streaming video for Freight Broker Bootcamp. So, what Freight Broker Bootcamp does is we help people to become freight brokers and freight agents in less than 30 days. And so to learn a little bit more about that, you can check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com, or you can check out my blog at freightbrokerbootcamp.com/blog. I post there regularly, maybe not every week, but at least 2 or 3 times a month, typically, different blog posts, different videos. I've had that blog for years now. There's a ton of content, ton of information on there. So today we're talking about how to convert one customer into 10 customers without cold calling. So here's a question from Tracy Cooper. I have a solar equipment customer who I'm having a difficult time getting good rates for them. Okay, so what is your question, Tracy? Help me to understand what your question is. That was more of a statement, not a question. Is your question, can I get you better rates? I don't even know anything about the freight. I don't know anything about your customer. I don't know anything about their lanes. I don't know anything about the specific needs of that customer. I know nothing about it, so it's extremely hard for me to answer that question for you. Here's what I can tell you. The best way to source trucks and to get rates, if you're just getting started, is to use either a carrier directory that's specific and you're using a backhaul strategy where you're going to find carriers that are domiciled in another area and they're looking to come back to the area that your freight needs to deliver to, or you're going to use load boards. And a lot of the load boards have resources now where you can do a historical search of trucks that have posted their truck within certain lanes. So if a customer had asked me for a quote from Buffalo to Atlanta for van freight, I might go into one of the load boards and look at some of their historical postings and put in Buffalo to Atlanta van freight, and then at that point it'll typically pull up a history of the trucks that have been posted, the different carriers that have posted in that lane, and not only who they are, but how many times they've posted. And if you see somebody's posted 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times in that lane, that means they're running that lane pretty regular. So if you were to reach out to them, there's a very good chance that you're going to find some capacity, some availability. And at that point, you're just going to have to try to negotiate some rates, find out what the baseline is for what they charge, what that carrier charges, and then from there you can record that and mark it up based upon whatever type of profit you want to make. You want to make $100 on the load, you add 100 on. You want to make 20%, you add 20% on, and so on and so forth. So getting competitive rates, is a function of developing, of getting insight, gaining pricing insight into specific lanes, and the load boards have become very, very good at that. When I first started back in 2003, it wasn't very good. But by the time I retired a couple of years ago, the technology had gotten so much better. They had really kind of pinpoint the whole rate thing. So going into those load boards and using those rating tools, a lot of times there might be an upcharge for some of those rating tools, but they're worth it because it's going to save you an enormous amount of time in trying to figure out the price. Another way to do it is to post, post a fake load and see how many carriers call on it. And when they call on it, start out low and negotiate low and see what they say. And then from there, you're going to write the carrier's name down, their phone number, and the rate that they asked, that they said they would do it for. And then you're going to gain some insight. You're going to be able to gain some information on what the cost of that is, and then you can obviously mark it up from there. Okay, so I hope that helps from a rating perspective. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Okay, so, for those of you that haven't, that are just joining us, this is the first ever Facebook Live Freight Broker training for Freight Broker Bootcamp. And I'm hopefully going to be doing this on a weekly or maybe a bi-weekly basis. A lot of that's going to really depend upon you guys. So here's what I'm going to ask. If you guys want me to do this on a regular basis, hit the thumbs up. Hit the thumbs up as many times as you can. Just keep hitting it and let me know that you're serious. Because again, I still own 2 other businesses. I'm very busy, but I would love to take some time out of my week and spend a half an hour answering questions for you guys. And this is questions that people that are already a part of Freight Broker Bootcamp. They're already students, and this is people that are just considering becoming a freight broker or looking for more information about becoming a freight broker or freight agent. And then also, if you guys could share it, that would be awesome. If you guys could share the feed here, if you could share the stream, the live stream, that would be awesome. Make sure you share that as well. My screen's blown up with blue thumbs up, so that's awesome. We got over 50 comments so far, so that's really good. That's a good start, guys. Let's see. All right, Diego Bragas. Yeah, I'm not sure what that question is. So is there any other questions? We've been on here for about a half an hour, and I really wanted to try to keep it a little bit short. And so any last questions that you guys want me to cover about how to convert 1 freight customer into 10 freight customers without cold calling? And again, I'm going to put a link in here again where you guys can download the cheat sheet. I would strongly suggest you get that cheat sheet. If you get the cheat sheet, it's going to be a 1-pager. Here, I'll show you. Here's what it looks like, guys. It's a 1-page cheat sheet that goes through the steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, and it also talks about the script and gives you the exact script that you would use when calling those locations. So it's extremely easy to use. It'll definitely help you out. So, hey, listen, I want to thank you guys for joining. This has been great. I'm not a big live video guy. I do, as you guys probably know, I do webinars from time to time, but I think that Facebook is a great tool. If you guys agree, do me a favor. I'd love to hear where you guys are logging in from. Put your city and state in the comments. Put your city and state in the comments and hit some thumbs up. Make sure you share this stream and make sure you get a copy of the cheat sheet from the link that I included above. And all you need to do is put your email in there and you'll be able to download that cheat sheet. So put in the comment box. I'd love to hear, before we close out, I'd love to hear where everybody's logging in from. Where are you guys? I'm in Buffalo, New York, just so you guys know. I'll put it in here so everybody knows. Any Buffalo people? Okay, so we got Anna's from Portsmouth, Virginia. Tim's from Calhoun, Georgia. Jessica's from Louisville, Kentucky. Yeah, it's funny. Tim, Calhoun, Georgia. I used to ship a lot out of that area. I think it was turf or carpet. We used to do a lot of carpet out of there a long, long time ago. Lester's from Charlotte. Debbie's from Manitowoc, Wisconsin. Let's see. Michael's from Fort Collins. Carrie is from Philadelphia, Missouri. Awesome. Rachel is from Cottondale, Florida. Tracy's from Avondale, Arizona. Hey, listen, this is awesome, guys. You guys, yeah, Tim, it was field turf. You're right, field turf. That's what it was. We used to ship. Oh, man, that was a blast from the past. We used to ship a lot of turf. You know how many of the college and professional football fields that I delivered turf into, and crumb rubber and all those recycled materials that they use for doing the fields? Oh, my God, I did millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of freight with some of those companies. So yeah, if you do business with Field Turf, they're a good, Field Turf itself is actually a really good company. Tracy's from Avondale, Arizona. Yeah, Tim says he hauls for Field Turf sometimes. That's awesome. I used to know all those guys over there. Haven't called and talked to those guys in a long time. Super sacks of crumb rubber. Tim, way to go. You're speaking the same language here, buddy. I'll tell you a funny story, and then we'll close out. For those of you that don't understand, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about recycling. When they take tires, okay, old tires, what they do is they grind them up into little teeny pieces, and they strip away all the steel belt, and they grind it up into small pieces, and it's called crumb rubber. And what they do is they put them into these big super sacks. It's like big, huge, giant bags. But when they come off the conveyor belts after being ground up, they're warm. They're actually hot, right? And there's some moisture in there. And so what happened was my client had to get this. Normally they let that cool down, but they had to get the product to a location. So they literally threw it in the back of a truck, in the back of a van. In the middle of summer. It was really, really hot. And they had all these super sacks of rubber, of crumb rubber, in these big burlap bags, and it's hot and moist. Now, if you guys have ever heard of the term spontaneous combustion, this is no joke. The truck that I hired was driving down the road with dozens of super sacks in the back, probably 30 or 40,000 pounds worth of crumb rubber and super sacks, and it was all hot and moist, and the trailer started on fire. I'm not even kidding you. The trailer started on fire. The driver looks back in his rearview mirror. He sees smoke coming out of the back. He opens it up, and there's a fire in the back of his trailer because of spontaneous combustion. So I just thought that was a really funny story to share with you, especially with Tim, because Tim's done business in that field. And just some of the crazy things you run into when you're a freight broker and dealing with manufacturers and shipping and getting freight from point A to point B. So Tracy says, can you Skype me? Tracy, I'm sorry. I just don't have time to do one-on-one, coaching and consulting. If you have questions, if you have questions and you're a member of freightbrokerbootcamp.com, you can obviously email me. I'm going to be doing these Q&As. Hopefully I'm going to be doing these Q&As more frequently, depending upon, how the stats turn out and how much engagement there was. And again, hit those thumbs up buttons, guys. Hit the thumbs up and make sure you share the stream. But I just don't have a ton of time to do one-on-one consulting. That's the reason why I want to leverage this. I'd love to get a few hundred people on this stream where we could do Q&A. I'll spend an hour if we have enough questions. So I answered most of the questions today. If things go well, we'll schedule an hour every week, and we'll be able to get together here and do some live Q&A. So hey, listen, I want to thank you guys for joining in, and I'm going to close it out now. But again, share it, like it, make sure you stay tuned for future episodes of Freight Broker Bootcamp live Q&A through Facebook. Hope you guys have an awesome day, and we'll see you soon.